We were told the following: if President Kerr actually tried to get something more liberal out of the regents in his telephone conversations, why didn't he make some public statement to that effect? And the answer we received from a well-meaning liberal was the following. He said, would you ever imagine the manager of a firm making a statement publicly in opposition to his board of directors? That's the answer. Well, I ask you to consider, if this is a firm, and if the Board of Regents are the Board of Directors, and if President Kerr, in fact, is the manager, then I tell you something, the faculty are a bunch of employees, and we're the raw materials. But we're a bunch of raw materials that don't mean to have any process upon us, don't mean to be made into any product, don't mean to end up being bought by some clients of the university, be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone. We're human beings. There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
During the 1960s, young people played a larger role in the political, cultural, and social life of the U.S. than at any other time before. Before 1965, a small minority of college students expressed their dissatisfaction with the political status quo and with college administrations. By the end of the decade, student activism, deeply enmeshed in opposition to the war in Vietnam, rocked campuses across the country. Many experimented with alternative lifestyles in the counterculture during the second half of the decade. Nearly everything they did startled or upset the older generation. The most influential of the early student groups was Students for a Democratic Society, founded at the University of Michigan in 1960. Inspired by protests of the civil rights movement, members of SDS advanced the idea of participatory democracy and militant nonviolence. They envisioned a society shaped by a far greater range of voices in both local and national decisions and discourse. SDS advocated for grassroots activism to bring economic and racial justice to the U.S. and desired a less confrontational approach to the Cold War. SDS led the New Left, groups of young activists who intentionally distanced themselves from the ideological infighting, communism, and labor organizing of the Old Left. International in its scope, the American New Left was heavily influenced by socialist thinkers in Britain, France, and West Germany, as well as by the Cuban Revolution. The New Left and the wider student movement grew slowly at first on campuses around the country and around the world. But after the free speech movement at Berkeley in the fall of 1964, more students began to echo the same complaints towards their own university. In addition to free speech, free political activity, curriculum reform, and opposition to the military-industrial complex, students took on in loco parentis, the idea that colleges and universities acted in the place of one's parents. In particular, students rallied for changes with moderate success in old-fashioned rules regarding curfews, visiting hours, and housing organized by gender to moderate success. In the second half of the 1960s, young people unnerved mainstream society outside politics as well. Some rejected establishment values by advocating personal freedom above the older generation's emphasis on collective responsibility and materialism. As the utopianism of the early counterculture faded, a generation of inventive counterculture veterans turned their energies to creating the framework of the new economy of the information age of the 1980s and 90s. Computer pioneers like Steve Jobs used the creative energy of the counterculture to devise new products and business models. Others worked on sustainable energy technologies and ecological design. The majority of teenagers and college students in the late 1960s, however, stayed away from the radical politics and never committed to the most extreme countercultural rejections of mainstream society. Hollywood and savvy marketers catered to the youth market and cashed in on the popularity of countercultural ideas and imagery to sell their products. The remarkable rise of rock music demonstrated the power of the youth market. Fans could read about their favorite artists in Rolling Stone, which began in 1967, Like the Whole Earth catalog, Rolling Stone moved quickly from the underground to the mainstream without losing its edgy coverage that led stores in conservative areas to ban the publication. Rock music, too, evolved with the decade, becoming more experimental, more drug-influenced, and more provocative than ever. By the early 1970s, rock records made up 80% of all music sales. In rock and roll, young people found a cultural medium that allowed them to rebel against traditional values without having to change their lifestyle too dramatically. But this hardly reassured the millions who saw in the hippies and the counterculture a series of threats to their traditional way of life. Love and change were in the air across America in the 1960s, but so were fear, hatred, and anxiety.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nubs. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on report from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still life of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so damn relevant, and women will not care if Dick finally got down with Jane on Search for Tomorrow, because black people will be in the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no highlights on the 11 o'clock news and no pictures of Harry armed women liberationists and Jackie Onassis blowing her nose. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Keys, nor sung by Glenn Campbell, Tom Jones, Johnny Cash, Engelbert Humperdinck, or The Rare Earth. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with Coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.